Welcome to the quest for epic roleplay. If you're looking to deepen your D&D experience and improve your roleplay like never before, then you're in the right dungeon. My name is Timothy, and I'm a professional dungeon master running over 300 games of Dungeons & Dragons every year. Getting good at RP is not just a hobby good idea, but professional development here at my house. And I believe that the 5 tips that I've got for you today will help you to elevate your roleplay to the next level. First, let's talk about motivation. Because if you don't have a story for your character or NPC before play, then you can't RP successfully. But minor details and sprawling epics aren't the point of a good backstory or an NPC prompt. What matters most is your motivation, because positive and negative motivations create 3-dimensional characters. It's entirely possible for us to make a one-note NPC that only has one driving force, one thing that makes them interested in interacting with the world. And those can come off just fine and be interesting enough, I suppose. But if you want your characters to elevate up to the next level, whether it's character or NPC, you need to have not only a motivation, but several motivations to be doing the things that your character is going to do, and they need to overlap a little bit, get messy, and be both pushes and pulls on your character that drive them towards and against things in order to create a character that feels as real as a person in life. When we have only one or the other, it feels very flat and two-dimensional. To add greater depth to your character, add more motivations, and then find ways in which they can interact and clash against one another. As a couple of examples from literature, Shakespeare wrote excellent characters. For instance, Macbeth, who had a desire for power and ambition, but guilt related to the methods that he had to use in order to get there. His desire to assuage his guilt and his desire to gain more power warred with one another in order to create the complex character that he was. Similarly, Juliet, for instance, had both a love of family and love for Romeo that came into conflict and created the character that she was. So try finding a way in which you could be motivated by 2 things that will occasionally come into conflict to where you'll have to choose one over the other and can't advance both at the same time. You can also deepen your character by adding flaws. We escape into D&D, and so the temptation is to create the perfect character that isn't going to have any kind of flaws and can be the superhero that we aren't in real life. But when we do make these perfect characters that never make mistakes, even though we know the dice aren't going to play along, we lose the opportunity to explore a different point of view, and our characters feel less real as a result. Some of the best flaws for roleplay take our strengths and amplify them out until it gets a little uncomfortable. Blind loyalty, forbidden curiosity, misplaced trust, or foolhardy heroism are a couple of great examples. DMs, this might feel like a lot, especially for an NPC that you're not certain is going to get an awful lot of playtime. Give minor NPCs 2 motivations, one toward something that they want and one against something that they don't want, and a flaw, and you're well on your way. And of course, as that minor NPC that you never expected to see the light of day more than once becomes your player's favorite character of all time and needs to come back on a weekly basis, just add more motivations in order to deepen that character's story. The second of these 5 tips about improving your roleplay involves leaning in. Learning to be excited and curious about the world around you, both as a player and as a DM. Ask questions and explore the roundabout you and the characters that you come into contact with. As a player, this means trying to find out the details of the story instead of being a passive recipient of it, or showing curiosity about the details of a room that your DM is glossing over or putting in front of you trying to tempt you. Explore the maps and details that your DM is giving you. Most of them have probably been done so painstakingly. and the DM has probably put a lot more thought into it than you would give them credit for. Meanwhile, as a DM, this means being curious about the characters that your players are representing. How will they react? Do they live up to their motivations? Can you predict what they're going to do next? Whether you're a player or a DM, improve your roleplay by embracing improvisation. When another player puts forth a suggestion, don't automatically poo-poo it. You don't have to just yes and agree constantly with what they're saying, but you can choose to find a way to push the story forward instead of just shutting options down. In general, it's better to let a crazy idea move forward than to stagnate the game by stopping every suggestion, no matter how unlikely they are to succeed. And this applies whether you're a DM or a player. You don't need to shut things down with a "are you sure?" if people have come up with a terrifying idea. Just lay out the facts, let them know if their idea is completely impossible, but otherwise, see what the dice have to say and try and move forward rather than stalling out and stopping. The third tip is a simple one that I think is an amazing hack to get around how your brain works and get into a character, and that is to use what I call a touchstone. A touchstone is essentially a short phrase or thought or vision or action that you touch back to on a regular basis as part of a character in order to ground yourself in how that character thinks and acts. It's especially useful if you're trying to use some kind of voice to accent your character, no matter how bad your voice acting might be, and a kind of a story that helps explain it. I'm originally from Tasmania, Australia, but for whatever reason, I pick up accents very easily, whether I'm trying to or not. So within about 2 years, I'd lost my accent, and I've been here for almost 22. I went probably another 10 or 15 years where nobody ever asked me where I was from, which, since I'm from one of the coolest places ever, was kind of a letdown. But then I started waiting tables, and while I was doing so, my mum was in town, and as such I was training and repeating a couple of phrases over and over again on a regular basis right after having chatted with her, and so I started saying the phrase, "Hello, my name is Timothy and I'll be your server today," on a very regular basis. And that became an accidental touchstone because my accent was out at that point. Whenever I would say those words, my accent would come back just a little bit. If you ask my sister, it sounds terrible and nothing like an Australian accent, but it's as close as I get because it just comes out naturally and does its own thing. And something that I noticed about it is that not only does my accent come out, which of course is useful if I'm trying to fake an Australian accent. Fake? It's not fake. Fake? Can it be fake when it's actually my accent? Anyway, in fact, I actually think with different sayings and thought patterns. I put words together in different orders, and nothing actually comes out the same as it would if I hadn't used that touchstone first. The same thing is true if you use a touchstone for any character. The more time you spend in that character after using that touchstone, and the more times you touch back on that same phrase, the more often you will find that your thought patterns start shifting and you start thinking as that character because of the accent that you're attempting to use. Now, don't get me wrong, role-playing does not mean using a funny accent, but using an accent can improve your role-play experience. And it doesn't need to be a phrase and an accent that causes your touchstone into your character. Changing your posture, taking on an affectation or twitch, focusing on a specific expression, or just holding your mouth slightly differently are all ways that can serve as a touchstone to bring you back to the character that you're trying to portray. The fourth tip for good roleplay is to look at the world through the lens of your character or NPC. Roleplay isn't the art of using funny voices, nor is it about play acting out an interaction. It's not about speaking as an NPC or a character at all. Roleplay is supposed to be a part of every decision that you make, whether it's a combat decision, an exploration decision, or social play acting or narrating of how you act in any given situation. Roleplay is in fact the art of making decisions as if you were someone else. And so knowing who you are and remembering it is the key to good RP. Boiling who you are down into a simple sentence in a question format can help you to do that. For your PC or NPC, try filling the blanks on this sentence. If I were blank, who wanted blank, what would I do? And repeat it to yourself constantly throughout a given scenario. Write it on a 3x5 and look at it occasionally during a game. Make it a note on your specific NPC notes as the DM. As an example, if I were a down on my luck bard who wanted to be remembered for the story that I told forever, what would I do? Or, if I were a disgraced dwarven warrior who wanted to die in battle, what would I do? Look at the world through your lens by asking this question to yourself and watch as your roleplay becomes more and more what your character would do instead of what you would do without being memey and frustrating. As our fifth and final tip, at the end of the day, or, session, what we look at is what we change. It's a true fact that one of the easiest tricks that you can take in order to improve at anything or to change something is to track it. If you're trying to lose weight, tracking the food that you put into your mouth by writing it down, if you make no other change in your life, is proven to decrease the number of calories that you're going to intake. Likewise, tracking your weight every day or on a weekly basis will start to trend you downwards if that's something that you're looking to work toward. What we track gives us power to succeed at changing in a direction that we want to. So if we want to improve at roleplay, the best thing that we can do for ourselves is to take notes on how we did. Soliciting feedback is a great way to do this, but, it can also feel hard. Not all of our friends are necessarily as polite about the feedback that they give, nor do they necessarily understand what we're aiming for the same way that we do. And on top of that, if their constructive feedback is not tremendously kind, it can cause us a little bit of anxiety in order to receive it. Asking your friends seems like it's going to be a little hard. Take 5 minutes to ask yourself a number of questions instead. Ask yourself, did I stay true to my character or NPC today? What was the biggest decision that my character or NPC made? Why did they choose that? And was it in keeping with their motivations? Did I learn anything about my PC or my NPCs today? And if somebody looked at the choices that I made, could they determine what my motivations are? Then adjust. Don't think of this as being a pass-fail situation, because it's not. Instead, remember that each session is an opportunity to deepen your character's motivations and your understanding of that character, and to improve your portrayal of them. Whether you're a DM or a player of the world's greatest role-playing game, or some other TTRPG, roleplay is at the heart of a good game. It's my mission here on YouTube to help you improve your game as much as possible in any way that you might need. I'd love to hear what's holding you back, so leave a comment down below with any kind of question you have, and I promise that I will do my absolute best to help you move forward. In the meantime, here's some other advice that YouTube says you still need. Who are we to argue with the algorithm? Thanks for watching, and happy adventuring.